But I try to focus on the people that are watching me because it's their first experience with me for the most part.
Well, actually, that's a critical point you just said there, by the way, because if you don't care about the people that are watching you, you're dead in the waters.
Absolutely.
Right from the bat. So that's a very critical point. If you don't care about your audience, you shouldn't be on the stage.
Absolutely, and I focus on that and saying, this is the first time, and I'm trying to create that I'm doing this for the first time, and walking them through the presentation of the story.
You're holding the hand to take them through the
taking them through a story. I mean, it's something that Bob and I spoke about 20 some odd years ago, where you're talking about a through line and walking people through the story and getting them and keeping them interested.
Because it's very important to realize that when you've done a show for, I don't know, whatever, 100 times, 500 times, 1,000 times, you know where you're going, but you also have to keep in your head that they don't know where you're going.
And you have to lead them
and you
through
have
that.
to be able to guide them, exactly. And it's really critical, that.
And every audience is really a different audience.
Oh, without a doubt.
You know, I started off dancing, right? So,
you could dance?
Oh, baby. Yeah,
Right
right here on this table. Throw money. When I started out as a dancer, I thought in terms of everything physically.
Right.
If I were out of breath, I must be doing a good job. If I'm working hard, if I'm tired, if my muscles are sore.
So the dance later.
Thank you. Together or apart?
Way
together, I have to pay you. But when I came back as an actor, I thought about things entirely differently. I thought of myself as a character with a story. Why am I telling the story? Why are you doing the trick? What, just to do a trick?
Right.
See, another critical point there, but see, you guys are good. I shouldn't be here because that's a great point.
Well, why am I doing it? Am I showing
how
off?
do I do the trick? It's why am I doing the trick? Why should anybody be interested in this at all?
Well, that goes back to what I said earlier, where you need that presentational hook to lock them in, and which is always something that when I'm going to work on a routine, I always say, how am I going to hook these people in? Just like music.
Hooking means how do you interest them in wanting to watch?
Right, and reel them in.
By the way, that's your dance music, though.
We have to.
No,
you took the money back. Forget it.
But to get back to your point, which was, I think, an interesting question, how do you keep it fresh for your audience, for yourself? My approach is very improvisational, but it's not as improvisational as people think, because if you've seen me work more than once, you know there are lots of lines that repeat. But I have what I call buoy points, that I know are solid points within the show, and I have maybe 6 of them.
I think that's a great explanation. Buoy points, because they're little lifesavers.
Little lifesavers.
Right, where they keep
so
you right.
I know that I'm going to drift, and I
Very
do
good.
my little improv
Very
things
good.
to make myself fresh again. Then I
does
can
that
always
mean?
swim back, and I can grab onto a solid line.
Right. That's a great metaphor. But so just name one, and how do you do that? Like for instance.
For example, one of the things I talk about a lot to young magicians especially is how to treat people on stage. So if I have somebody on stage to help with something, I always give them all of the applause because I know it's a solid buoy point. So when I make the rose for the lady, for example, it took me a long time to get the line right, but I'll say to the lady, you do get this beautiful little paper rose, but far more importantly, and I stand way back right now, you get all of this applause.
Right.
And the audience goes crazy for us, so I know right before that moment, I can drift all over the place about, the statues of the Guggenheim Museum and roses up their asses and things, because if the audience don't get it, I have that little place I'm swimming to where I know it's going to be
But that's also an interesting ploy that you use, because you're asking for applause. But you're not asking for yourself, you're asking for the spectator.
Absolutely right.
But you're garnering the applause.
Of course, I know the applause is for me,
So you,
but give me
it
till
to
I
them,
get
and
more.
And look at what that does in terms of people liking you. If they like you, they want to watch your magic. They feel from that you're very generous, that you're a gentleman, and they appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it makes them feel very warm about you, very good about you, and they want to watch your magic.
And just to say something about the spectator on stage thing, which I think is very important for every magician, especially young ones, to realize, is that you have to understand that you're on stage 4 or 5 times a week. when you get a spectator up from the audience to help you, that may be the one and only time in their life they're on a stage. And you know the number one fear in the world is standing up in front of other people. So
Absolutely.
I think it's,
Absolutely.
I think part of the likability of a magician, especially, is that when you have somebody up on stage, you have to treat that person like royalty. Now,
Well, with respect.
I'm renowned for being vitriolic to them, but you don't hear me off mic when I'm whispering to them saying, you're doing great, you're fantastic, you're wonderful, and then giving them all of the applause. You and I know it's for me, really,
Right.
but to them, they're standing on a stage in front of maybe 1,000 people, and they think that applause is for
And that's
them,
great.
and that's what
No,
they'll
but that's-
remember.
But I think what's also an important thing, when you say, let's give those applause, the one thing that you need there is you need to be genuine.
Absolutely.
Because if the audience will sense this, and audience will
Absolutely, absolutely.
sense when you're being genuine and when you're not being genuine, and that's the whole thing. So if you really do, as we said earlier, care about your audience,
Right.
and talk about it, and say, well, let's give him a nice round of applause for helping out. The audience will applaud and go, okay, he was being honest, he wants to share the spotlight with this person and show him the respect for coming up and helping him out. And I think that, or helping her out, and I think that that's a wonderful thing. But going back to what we discussed earlier, when we started this whole thing, how do we pick stuff that,
Fits us.
Yeah, it kind of drifted, didn't
yeah,
it?
it drifted in a good way, and I think in an excellent way. I have to tell you, many times, and this is gonna sound weird, I don't pick the trick. The tricks
tricks
pick
pick
me.
you.
Yes,
Yeah, that's good. I like
absolutely.
that.
And it's true, because I'm reading a book and I'm going, this is definitely something that I can go.
Yeah, it
that I
appeals
can-
to you.
Oh, without a doubt. And I think that's an interesting thing, and
I think it's a perfect analogy, and I can give you an absolute example of it. I was reading through a David Regal book, and I'm a big fan of David. I'm reading
David's
the book,
wonderful magician.
Yeah.
and none of the
Wow.
magic is suiting me. I know it would suit him, obviously, but remember, and I come across this little piece at the end, which was a Dear John letter joke he'd written.
Right.
And I spent, I don't know, 6 to 8 months developing a routine based around a divorce. And I phoned Dave and said, do you mind if I do this piece? You know, and he said, no, it's in the book, you can do it. I said, I've rewritten it, I'd like you to see it. But when I was going through the book, it was literally like I'd gone onto different colored pages.
Oh, okay.
It was like, zoom, straight.
Right,
Like,
right.
this is something I can do.
Instant appeal.
The trick picked
And,
me.
and it's
Or the
important.
piece.
But also, I think they should hear the fact that you called him.
Oh, I absolutely
Right.
could.
You were gracious enough and honest enough to call him and ask permission for doing it, because it inspired you so much.
Absolutely.
And you were so, and you also wanted to praise him for it, because it's something, it meant
For him
something
to
to you.
share it.
Yeah.
For sharing
For
it.
sharing it, yeah.
And it's now the second to closing piece in my show. I mean, I love the piece.
It's not I'm copying you, I'm cloning you,
So
and
I
I don't
think-
care about you, it's.
To wrap this
you
up, I
care.
think one of the things is that you need to do is to get experience, what we talked about, and that's how you handle an audience.
Learn
And
who
the other
you
way-
are.
And remember that magic is a performing art, not a static art where you just sit in in the room and just practice moves.
I believe your magic.
Well, that's okay, but that's not what this art form, in my opinion, is. It's
Right.
about getting in front of
Moves-
people.
moves aren't
and-
magic.
And
Say it again.
Moves aren't magic.
Right,
Moves
okay.
are just the tools that allow you
To do.
What
magic.
drives me crazy is when I see a lot of young guys who are really good technically, and I ask them, do you have a trick? And you know how many say no? Or
Right.
do you have an act? And they say
80%.
no. Well, that means you can't entertain. You're just sort of in a closet doing moves. But you can move past that. You can become terrific. You know?
I guess the finale point is really that there is a difference between magic and magical performance. And, you know, if you want to be a magician, you have to learn how to be
Oh, being a magician,
performer.
without a doubt, being a magician is the whole, is the whole thing. It's being able to perform.
As opposed to
being
just
able
doing a
to-
few
the
tricks.
knowledge, the technique, the skills, and the chops, if you will, and of course, and knowing your history.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important,
Yeah.
knowing history, and so they understand how we develop and grow on other great people's shoulders. So I think that's great.
And the thing
And
is,
I hope a lot of people listen to this, by the way, because I think there's been a lot of
I think it's been a
very
good talk.
valuable information.
the thing about looking at all the DVDs and learning from the DVDs is that while you may do a great job copying and learning the techniques that were so hard for us to learn because we didn't have the DVDs back then.
Right.
Those scrappy little typewritten manuscripts, remember
We
those
had
days?
to interpret sometimes badly written texts.